Hey guys, welcome to the Brown Paper Theology Podcast. I'm Will Wolf, and on this podcast, you'll find various teachings ranging from topical word studies to a big series on the story of the Bible. The mission of this podcast is to help inspire people to get into the foundational texts of our faith and really experience them and hear what God is saying through them. We call it the Word for a reason, and that's because it's a word worth listening to. So thanks for listening in, and I hope you enjoy and learn something while you're here. Okay, welcome back, my friends. I pray you're having a great day or evening, wherever you are when you're listening to this, whatever time it might be. I just pray that you experience God's blessing wherever you may be. All right, so on this week's episode, we explore the crucially important story of the flood. And it's a story of grief and cosmic collapse, but it is not the end of the story. As we'll see, God can and does turn everything for his ultimately good purpose. Before going in, I just want to make a few clarifying points. Firstly, we explore the weird and disturbing story of Ham and Noah and Noah's wife in this episode. And I mentioned that the Canaanites are the product of incest. And I meant that more in the sense of their origin. I didn't mean to imply that every single Canaanite that we meet in the story came from incest. I just wanted to clarify that. Secondly, I merge had done and did later into the episode into the amazing grammatical masterpiece that is had did. I would like to apologize deeply to the grammar community for butchering that so terribly. All right, with all that aside, enjoy the episode. All right, welcome guys to the continuation of this class. Very excited about it. So this week, like I just said, we're gonna go over starting in Genesis 6, really Genesis 6 through like 10-ish. We'll probably stop in 9. 6 through 11 is kind of its own unit, but we're gonna kind of cut it short, and then next week or next time we meet, we're gonna look at chapters 10 and 11. And then that'll wrap up the entire thing that we've been doing to get from Genesis 1 to Genesis 11. And then once that's done, once that's under our belt, then we'll be able to advance into, we'll go a little bit quicker, like I've been saying this entire time. 1 through 11, there's a lot in it. Yeah. It sets up the stage, so we just really want to internalize it. And interestingly, if we get that rhythm down, that rhythm in us, as we go into Genesis especially and into the rest of the Old Testament, so many stories are patterned after what happens in 1 through 11 that we'll start to feel the beats coming. So we'll start to hear consistent language. We'll say, oh, okay, something, whatever. I know this is like the flood part of the beat, and so I know what's going to come next. And so that's just going to help us read as we go on. But for now, we're going to focus just on Noah and the flood, which is, like we said, Genesis. We'll do 6 through 9-ish. That's what we're going to do. But I have a tendency to want to blast forward, so let's take a step back. Let's just open up with a word of prayer, and then we'll move on. All right. So, Lord God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the beautiful spring weather that we're experiencing. It's it's insanely polleny, but that's okay. That's life. Literally it's life, and it's supplying life to the plants and to everything. So it's beautiful, and so we thank you for it, God. We just thank you for your life. We thank you for what you did for us on the cross, Jesus, and what you continue to do for us every single day, in us and through us. And so, God, I pray that as we just continue to go back into your word, that you would just show us something new. Doesn't matter how many times we read this. If we read it for a lifetime, God, you're always going to show us something new about who you are and what you want for your good world. And so please just open up our hearts to receive you, our minds to comprehend you, our eyes to see you, and our ears to hear you. Please be with us. Jesus, you say that where 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, there you are right in the middle of them. And so we believe that you're here. And so would you please just cheer us on as we just learn about you. And so we thank you, we praise you. Please bless everybody that's going to hear this. And we just thank you, Jesus, your holy and precious name. Amen. All right. Okay. So let's do a quick summary. So we're about to go into chapter 6, but chapters 1 through 5 are their own kind of thing. And so 1 through 5 is its thing. 6 through 11 kind of is its thing. There's some overlap there. But let's just go through the big beats of the story up until this point. Okay. So we have Genesis 1, which opened up with this beautiful picture of God's intention for his creation. And we went through all the steps to show that the ultimate plan, the ultimate point of creation, the cosmos itself, is to be God's temple. And that's the entire thing, to totally unite heaven and earth. And it's an awesome picture. And then as we go to Genesis 2, it's kind of the like, okay, now what really happened, and are we going to get to that point? And so Genesis 2 opens up not with this idea of the entire cosmic order being God's temple, as the entire overlap of heaven and earth, but just this one small space. And that's what the garden was all about. And so we had the land of Eden, and then in Eden we had the garden, and then there's also the mention of the middle of the garden, mid. In the middle of the garden is where the two trees, the tree of life, and then the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, Tov and Ra, are. And so it's this increasing holiness as we get closer and closer to the middle. It's this 3-tiered structure. It's beautiful. It's awesome. But since the garden is depicted as the total overlap of heaven and earth, we know from Genesis 1 that the entire thing, the entire land, everything is supposed to be the overlap of heaven and earth. And so the question that we have to ask is, okay, is the garden supposed to stay where it is? Or is it supposed to spread? And so the logical answer is it's supposed to spread. And it's going to be through the partnership of God and these 2 humans that he invites in, Adam and Eve. He just says, hey guys, can you just trust me? Have a blast, eat from every tree in the garden, but please, for goodness sake, just don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's off limits for now. And it's awesome. It's a great setup. But there's this little snaky character, this creature who comes in and starts to subvert God's word and starts to make the humans question if God is holding out on them, if he's holding out on them. And so he does that 1-2 punch thing. He implies it, but then he outright states it. And what that results in is it results in the humans seeing what's good in their own eyes, taking it for themselves. And that's the whole point. It's not that God gave them this thing. That was his whole plan, was to give it to them. But instead they rely on their own timetable and take it for themselves. They invite chaos into the garden instead of pushing it out. And because of that, they invite death and disorder and all this bad stuff that's supposed to be kept out of the garden. They didn't cultivate it and protect it. They allowed chaos in. And because of that, they get cast out of the garden and into the land of Eden itself. There's all these consequences. So relational unity is going to be broken between the male and the female, the husband and the wife. It's going to be broken between humanity and God to some level. And there's also going to be like creation. Creation's not going to be everything it was meant to be because the humans are failing to actually be humans in their task. It's not that they're not humans biologically. It's that human is like a vocational term that they fail to do. They fail to be actually and fully human. But there comes this promise. It's this promise that there will be this one seed of the woman who will come and crush the head of the serpent, to crush the head of chaos itself, but to also be crushed in the process. And so it's this grand promise that there's going to be this one, the snake crusher.
And so really quick question. Do you think at that particular point that's when, the Lord gave us free will?
I think the whole point is that,
you know what I'm saying, right?
Yielded. Yeah. So I think, but we gotta remember the choice to take the fruit was of their own action, of their own free will to begin with.
Right.
And so the language is he gives them over. So that's what God does, is he sadly laments at the fact it's not a consequence of their actions, like it's not a punishment for their actions. It's because you did this, now this is the natural consequence. And so he gives humanity over to the effects of their own choices. So they chose chaos, and he says, okay, you're going to have chaos there.
Got it.
And so they're cast into the land of Eden, which is important. It's not so there's the land, which is outside here. Eden still means delight. And so they're not in the garden. They're not where they're supposed to be, but they're still in the land of delight. So it's still good there, but it's not quite where they should be. And so there's this promise. There's this promise of a snake crusher. That's going to be this one. Promise of one. Or of the one, I should say.
Yeah.
And so the whole biblical story is, who's that going to be? That's what we're waiting. Every new character that we meet, we have to ask the question, is this the one? And so we meet these two brothers, and they're clearly not the one, because the one acts like the snake, and he kills his own brother, lies to God about it, says, "Oof, am I my brother's keeper?" God says, no, 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 no. His blood is crying out to me, and because of this, you're going to be an outcast on the earth. And so Cain gets cast out further. He gets cast out of Eden entirely and into the land, and then he builds a city. And the city just explodes with violence to the point of this dude singing about the fact that he just chopped somebody's head off for slapping him. And that's what we talked about last time. That's the murderous Lamech. And then we have these two lines. We have the line of Seth, who is like the replacement for Abel, and then we have the line of Cain. And the names are really difficult to tell apart, because the whole point is it's really tough for us to tell the difference between a seed of the woman and a seed of the snake. We can't just know just by looking at them, or there's some quality of some person that says, no, you are holy, or you're unholy, you're evil, you're good. We can't say that. It's impossible. It's by actions, it's by fruit. But the chain of events is as follows. It's chaos to order to garden to failure, but failure with hope. Then there's something that happens with the second generation. The second generation splits, and then it all results in the building of a city. Okay? Genesis 1 and 2-ish. Genesis 1 and 2, Genesis 3, Genesis 4, and 5. Okay? So that's kind of the chain of events. That's what happens. And we're going to see that Genesis 6 through 11 replay this exact same thing again, but with a totally new generation. But we got to so we're like at this point here, and that's kind of where we are when we go to Genesis 6. So Genesis 6 opens up this way. When humanity began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them. Okay, that's not necessarily bad. That's good. That's what humanity's called to. Then it says, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were good, tov, attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Okay, first of all, what the heck? Who the heck are the sons of God? That's a great question. It's most likely that they are spiritual beings who are of the class of God, not meaning that they are God, but they have like the same sort of existence that God has, which is a spiritual type of existence. Sons of is this little Hebrew expression that's like belonging to the class of. And so that later on there's these people called the sons of the prophets. They're not their actual children, it's just they belong to the same class as the prophets. And so here,
Are these the Nephilim?
that's what we're going to get.
Okay.
So we have the sons of God who are looking down. Okay, God doesn't live in the clouds, but we're just going to try to imagine this. We have these sons of God looking down at human women who are beautiful. Tov. This is the same exact word that when the woman saw that the tree was good, that the fruit was good. So here, the sons of God are looking down at these beautiful human women, and they're doing the exact same thing that the humans in the garden did. They are seeing what's good in their own eyes, and they are taking for themselves. And so in the garden, it was humanity that was kind of seizing their own definition of wisdom, failing at the tree. And now in Genesis 6, it opens up with this like cosmic spiritual rebellion, but it's the exact same language. But instead of fruit this time, it's human women. And so these spiritual beings, they're looking at these human women, they're taking for themselves, taking wives, any they chose. And then here's where we get this. The whole first 4 verses of chapter 6 of Genesis are really weird, very confusing. There's a lot of different interpretations, but we're going to get there. We'll say what the most likely thing is. Okay, so it says, "Then the Lord said, my spirit, my ruach, shall not abide in this man forever, for he is also flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. Now, wouldn't you have it, around the same time, the Nephilim were on the earth around those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came to the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. Now these were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown, the men of the name." Okay, so what the heck is going on here? Why is this here? What's the purpose of these first 4 verses? They're really weird. They're very strange. They seem impossible. How do spiritual beings come down? What does that even look like? How do they take human wives for themselves? It's odd. It just is strange. But we got to remember, this is ancient literature, so we got to hear what the authors are saying here. So I think the key happens at the very end of verse 4, when it says that these were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. And so the mighty men, these men of renown, in other culture, did I spell that right?
Yep.
Okay. In other cultures surrounding Israel, these men of renown were like the heroes of their culture, cultural heroes, warrior people who are cultural heroes around Israel. But in the Bible, the biblical authors aren't really presenting this sort of union as something positive, because remember, it's all framed with the language of the failure at the tree. And so in other cultures, these people, these offspring, are cultural heroes. They're like the coolest people around. And for the biblical authors, they represent everything that's wrong with the cosmic structure, everything that's wrong. And so they're cultural heroes around Israel, but they're a huge part of the problem for the biblical authors.
Why is that?
Exactly. That's the question.
Okay.
So, I think the most accurate interpretation is that this is spiritual. It's a union of spiritual beings and physical embodied humans. And so remember, the whole point is that God is uniting heaven and earth with human partners, but he's the one who's doing it. But in this picture, it's these spiritual beings who are taking it upon themselves to unite heaven and earth by coming down and uniting with these beautiful women, taking for themselves. So it's like they're taking the initiative to then unite heaven and earth on their own terms, because it's the same thing. They're taking, they're seizing their own definition of good and rolling with it. And so the problem is that this union is not what God intended. First of all, it's humans are meant to be fruitful and multiplying with each other, not spiritual beings and human women. And so the offspring, I think the offspring is what God is talking about when he says, my spirit shall not abide in like this man. Because remember, back in Genesis 3, he already said that humanity is going to die. So why is he reiterating it again here? It's like, okay, God, you already established that humans aren't going to live forever because they introduced death into the garden, distance from you. They're cast away. They have no access to the tree of life or your eternal life. And so, yeah, we already know. But I think what he's doing is he's looking at this offspring of these Nephilim, these men of renown, violent warrior king giants who are the cultural war heroes in other cultures, but again, they represent everything that's wrong with the cosmic structure to the biblical authors. There's something that's inherently wrong about this. It's an improper fusion of spirit and body. Because remember, Genesis 2, it's all about that God breathes into the clay man, and then he becomes a nefesh chaya. That's a proper fusion of spirit and body. But this is not a proper fusion at all. It's actually completely improper. It's a perversion of everything that God wants. And so the offspring are these Nephilim, these fallen ones, these men of renown, these warrior giants who are like, again, I can't say it enough. These are the cultural war heroes of all the other cultures. But for Israel, they're just everything that's wrong, because these Nephilim, they're the men of renown, and they just spread violence. They spread violence. And so God is looking at this. He's looking at this union, and he's saying, you know what? 120 years, done. Clock starts ticking. So a lot of times this verse is taken as God is putting a cap on the human lifespan, but every single character that we meet after this is going to live way past 120. And so that just can't even be possible. Like, that just doesn't even make any sense. Even like, Moses lives to be 120. Abraham, I think, is 175, if I'm remembering correctly. And so there's all these characters after that that live past 120. And so
wasn't Noah 600?
Noah was 600 when the flood began.
Right.
And then, so we're getting there. Don't worry.
So I'm just kind of
yeah. So 120 years is probably a countdown to whatever judgment that God is going to exact on this type of thing.
Oh, right.
So he's looking at this. Yeah. He's saying, this is not good. This cannot abide. 120 years, I'm done. Like, it's happening. And there's these people called the Essenes, who were this sect that just went off into the desert. They thought they were the true Israel. And they had this sort of interpretation because they say that when Noah was 480 years old, God came to him and told him to build an ark. And so since the flood started when he was 600, 120 years before that, he was told. And so that's probably the most accurate thing. Is probably what he means. So, right, all that preamble aside, 120 years, the flood's coming. This improper union that's resulting in these warrior giants who are just spreading violence that just can't happen anymore. He says, I can't do this. So it says, the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Okay, so importantly, nothing that's about to happen, none of it is from anger at all. There's no rage, there is no violent anger in God because of this thing. It is out of deep and utter sadness. This is not God's wrath against the world. This is not God's wrath against fallen humanity. This is a painful thing that's like, he's heartbroken, and he says, I have to do this. Like, this has to happen. I can't let this go on. Like, you guys are wrecking my good world. I have to just wipe the slate clean. But it says importantly that Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And so Noah, I'm going to run out of room. Okay.
Oh, good.
All right, so Noah, his name means rest. Noach. Okay, so that's important. So Noah means rest. Okay, so Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And then it says, okay, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation, and Noah walked with God. And he had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, usually they would just continue on, like the way genealogies would work, like we talked about last time, is they'd say, this dude was this, he had these sons, that's great, and then they would just kind of trace the line through the sons. But they take a little break. We take a narrative break again. Instead of continuing on with Shem, Ham, and Japheth, we're going to say, okay, what is actually happening with Noah then? Okay, so Noah we know is this righteous guy. He's blameless. And so he's in right relationship with God and with others. He's blameless, which is the same language that's used for the sacrifices and for the priests. It's tamim. It's like whole, blameless, unblemished is what we usually hear. And he walked with God. That's important. So remember Adam and Eve, when God comes down, it's implied that he's like, hey guys, where are you? Ready for our afternoon walk? Like we have this relationship. And so to walk with God is this image of being side by side with him, to be in an intimate and wonderful relationship with God. And Noah experiences that, which is awesome because that's the type of human, that's what it means to be human. And so Noah has this walking relationship with God. And he's awesome. And already we should be asking, okay, is this going to be the guy? Is this the snake crusher? He seems like it. He's righteous. He's blameless. He walks with God. Man, this dude's like a real human. He finds favor with God. He's not participating in this junk and in this violence that's going on around him. No. So the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. So earlier it said man began to increase on the earth. And so as man is increasing, as man is being fruitful and multiplying, violence is also multiplying as well, just like in Cain's city. Okay, so men are increasing on the earth, but also violence is increasing on the earth. Okay? And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, what do you got? What translations do you guys have?
I'm in NIV. It says,
Okay.
I'm going to put an end to all people.
Okay, that's it. That's all I wanted to hear.
Okay.
What you got?
Same.
Okay, so you guys both have NIV? Okay, so ESV says something similar. It says, God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh. And so with these translations, it sounds like God is going to enact something like he's determined, just like, I got to kill everybody. But what the Hebrew actually says is, the end of all flesh has come up before me. And so it's not that God is like, so what really is happening is, the world's already destroying itself. Like, life is already canceling out life, and it's rising up before God, and he can see where this is leading. The end is coming. He can see the end of the track, and it's not good. And so the end of all flesh has come up before him. And he says, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And so the creatures on the earth are destroying the land. And so God says, I'm going to destroy them with the land. And so it's this kind of like, you guys are doing this to this. I'm going to hand you over. I'm going to give you over to the natural outcome of what you guys are actually doing. You think that you're just being wonderful, whatever, warrior giant kings who are just taking over land, destroying one another for all the sake of your own name. That's what you think. You think it's doing something good for you. But really what you're doing is chaotic. It's chaos, it's death. And so this thing that you're channeling, this thing that you really actually want, I'm going to hand you over to that. For the earth, okay, behold, I will destroy them with the earth. So make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and out with pitch. And this is how you are to make it. Listen to these instructions, very descriptive. The length of the ark, 300 cubits. Its breadth, 50 cubits, and its height, 30 cubits. Make a roof, and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. There you go. You guys ready to build a boat?
Do you remember
Let's do it up.
in Branderville
I don't even know what you're referring to.
when we measured this?
Oh yeah. So it's about
It was crazy.
so it's about 450 feet,
long,
75 feet,
high,
and 45.
45
Yeah, that is
75 feet wide, 45 feet high.
outrageously massive.
Yeah.
Like, I say that on purpose. That is outrageously massive. It's huge.
It's a football field and a half.
Yeah, it's huge.
I wrote that down. I don't know how I knew that, but I have it written down.
This is a massive. This is a cosmically sized boat.
It was so, like when we. It was crazy.
Yeah. This is a cosmically sized boat. Okay, but it's important, guys, that not a lot of description is given to it in terms of the making of it, and so the details that we do have to serve some sort of purpose. And so the language of length and breadth and height, that's the same language that's going to be used later on in Genesis 13 when God is describing the land to Abraham. It's also the same sort of language that's used to describe the Ark of the Covenant later on. And so this boat has cosmic significance. It has cosmic significance not because of its size, but because of what it represents, what's actually happening here. And so I would just want to invite you guys to not think about, obviously there's a lot of questions that have to do with this story, like global flood, local flood, when did this happen, was the boat this big? Obviously all those questions are super important, but I want to hear what the biblical authors are saying. And so we're just going to keep in mind what this boat represents, okay? So just keep that in mind. All right, so we have a cosmically massive boat, which is made out of wood, okay? It has a door in its side, What was the last mention of a door?
Like the temple, right?
Okay,
That's
yeah,
what we're doing.
exactly.
Yeah.
So in Genesis, the last mention of a door was when Cain and Abel were sacrificing at the door of the garden itself. And what is the garden again? Well, you just said it. Mentioned it. The temple. Okay. So let's think about that then. Let's continue that on in our brain. Okay. So this boat is huge. It's got a door in it, and it also has 3 decks. Okay. And it's just an upper, a middle, and a third deck. So how many decks is that? 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. How many?
3.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Starting to pick up what we're going on? Okay. So this, and then what's happening in the garden again? It's humanity, and then who else is in there? So it's not good that the man should be alone.
Oh, the answer, the helper.
Okay, but who is that first? It's the woman eventually, but who does God bring to the man first? And he brings these creatures to him so that whatever he names them is their name. What are those things? Animals, exactly. Animals. Okay, so in the garden, we have humanity living in harmony with animals. Okay? Humans and animals. Let's see if that continues on with our boat, shall we? Yeah, who would have thought? Who would have thought? Okay, so make a roof for the ark and finish it to a cubit above and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with a lower, second, and third decks. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish, this is important, I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. Now remember, when Noah is described, it just says Noah was righteous, blameless, and walked with God. Not his family. Yet, God is so wonderful that he can allow the righteousness of one person to represent or to be shared by the many. Does that sound familiar?
It does.
Okay, awesome. So of every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds according to their kinds, of the animals according to their kinds, of every creeping thing on the ground according to its kind, 2 of every sort shall come in, and you shall keep them alive. Also take with you of every sort of food that is eaten, and store it up. It shall serve as food for you and for them. And so Noah did this. He did all that God had commanded him. Okay, so we have this boat, this cosmically massive boat with a door in its side, with a roof, okay, with 3 decks where humans and animals are going to live. So what the heck is this thing? What is all the symbolism pointing, like what is this pointing to?
He preserves the temple and wiped everything else.
Exactly. So this is like, yeah, he's preserving the temple. It's like a floating garden.
Right.
Okay? It's a floating garden. So this is like a garden boat. Where humanity and animals are preserved and protected. And how amazing of God that he, even though he just said, everything's messed up, I have to wipe everything clean, but you know what? Actually, I'm going to save this guy and a heck of a lot of animals. All right, so God is just so determined. He's like, this project that I've started, you guys suck at it, but this is going to work. Like, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. All right, so we have this Eden boat, all right? We have this Eden boat, upper, lower, middle, upper, lower, middle. Yeah, upper, lower, middle decks with a door on its side. Humans are going to live there. Animals are going to live there. It's going to be great. And then it says, the Lord God said to Noah, go into the, also, ark. One last thing. Ark is ha-teba. So this is important. This adds to it. This is a Egyptian loan word. So this is an Egyptian word that Hebrew then took as its own, just like we do with everything. Like angels is a Greek word spelled with English letters. This is a loan word for this, this box that idol statues were kept in. Okay? So remember, the word that God uses for humanity is my image. It's selim. It's idol statue. And so this is going to be a box in which God's idol statues, humans, are going to live in safely. And so this is just another beat of like, okay, this is a cosmic boat. Noah and his family, they're like the new humanity being preserved in this box that has cosmic significance. That is clearly the garden. And okay, as we go on. All right, I'm not saying that this... Okay, never mind. I don't even know where I was going with that. All right, okay, yeah, so... so the Lord said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, the male and its mate, and a pair of the animals that are not clean, the male and its mate. 7 pairs of the birds, so keep their offspring alive on the face of the earth. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. And every living thing that I have made will blot out, every living thing I have made, I will blot out from the face of the ground." And Noah did all that the Lord God had commanded him. So Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters came upon the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Of clean animals and of animals that are not clean, of birds, of everything that creeps on the ground, 2 and 2, male and female, went into the ark with Noah as God had commanded Noah. And after 7 days, the water of the flood came upon the earth. All right, so in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, guys, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened, and rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Okay, so remember, we got to go back to Genesis 1. I know this is everybody's favorite class. This was a couple weeks ago. But if you guys remember, on days 2 and 3, day 2 was God separating the waters from the waters and putting that rakia in between them. That was day 2. And then day 3 was the waters receded so that the dry ground could appear. Oof, okay. Yikes. And so when we hear this, the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. That's like this thing that God ordered and separated. He takes his hands off, and he lets the waters below and the waters above come smashing back down. And so the flood is this image of a cosmic collapse that God is allowing to happen, because remember, he sees the end of all flesh is coming before him. He can see the end of the trail, and he's saying, okay, you guys are going to destroy the earth. I'm going to accelerate that process because I have a plan. I'm not going to allow death to have the final say. I'm going to use what you guys are already doing for my ultimate good purpose. Okay, and so the waters above and below, they come smashing back down. And then it's like we're in this chaotic, crazy, watery state again. And that's how Genesis 1, the first thing opened up. Exactly.
Yeah, it's chaos.
It's chaos back. Exactly.
Right.
So we're now we're back.
Yeah.
But importantly, it's not chaos in the same way that it was in Genesis 1, because in Genesis 1, at the opening picture, there's nothing alive.
Right.
There's no order. There's nothing. But now we have chaos, but on top of those chaos waters, we have a little floating box with humans and animals in it. That's a giraffe. There's always a giraffe.
Mm-hmm. And a dove.
That's later.
Okay.
We'll get there. Okay, so on top of the chaos waters.
So now we have floating chaos.
Well, no. We have chaos,
right.
And floating on top of chaos is this little box of order.
Oh, God. Right.
And so.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Right.
That's why this is so important.
Yeah.
That's why this is so important.
Yeah, for sure.
That the chaos God has kind of gone back to a pre-Genesis 1 state, a pre-ordered state, but there's something that's so significantly different this time. It's that now there's this little floating, protected, preserved box of order where humans and animals are living in harmony. Come on. Come on. Okay, and so again, this flood is described, it's nuts. It's crazy. And so the waters above and below, they come smashing back together. And it says, the flood continued 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the land. And the waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. Okay, so now it's like we're continually like breaking down the created order that God created, or that he ordered before. And so the waters above and below come smashing down, the dry land's nowhere to be found, and so we're going backwards. But it's important because this isn't like a random event. This is God orchestrating this, and so we can trust that he has a plan, that something good is going to come out of this. Okay, so the waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. And all the flesh died that was living on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. And so we've already seen days 2 and 3 get reversed, and now we see days 5 and 6 get reversed, where fish, they're fine. Birds get destroyed and humanity gets destroyed. And so it's like we're right back at the cosmic start, where it's just crazy chaos waters. But again, importantly, there's a little bit thing that's different, is that there's this floating Eden garden that's called the ark. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. Okay, 150 days. All right, so as we finish out chapter 7, this is not a fantastic look, okay? We have the land back in chaos. I mean, of course, yes, they have a boat with animals and food on it. That's wonderful, but that can't be a permanent solution. That's ultimately not God's permanent solution. That's not what God intends for his good world. Remember, humans are made for the land and to spread his goodness upon it and to have dominion upon it, to have dominion on the land, but also the sea and also the birds of the sky. And so that's God's ultimate plan. And so we have to see kind of what happens here. And so we're back in chaos, really. It's not an awesome picture. Of course, yes, it's wonderful that there's a floating garden, but we're still at the chaotic state. And so as chapter 8 opens, it's this important hinge. All of the decreation stories in Genesis they always have this twist where it's decreation, but always recreation. It's always God's plan to recreate. And so chapter 8 opens up this way. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and the livestock that were with him on the earth. He had regard for him. He turned his attention toward them. And God listen to this language. God made a ruach blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed, and the rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. At the end of 150 days, the waters had abated. In the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. It's a play on words. Ararat is like... if we said Mount Kars. And so the word underneath that is like curse. And so God is placing his ultimate Eden, like it's like Mount Curse, but he says, no, boop, Eden blessing on top of curse. And the waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. Okay, so I just want to go back through that. I made mention of ruach, of waters subsiding, and the tops of the mountains being seen. That's all Genesis 1 language, where in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then it says, now the earth was formless and void, tohu vavohu. And darkness was over the surface of the deep. But the Spirit of God, the ruach of God, was hovering over the face of the waters. And so the same language, the same word is here now. For this cosmic sea, it's like we're back on Genesis 1, but the same thing is there. God sends a wind, a ruach, to blow over the earth, and the waters subside. The fountains of the deep, the waters below, and the windows of the heavens were closed, the waters above. And the rain from the heavens was restrained. Okay? And the waters receded from the earth continually. So it's like we started at Genesis 1 on day 1, and now it's like we're going back through the beats of all the days. Now it's like we're up to day 3. You guys following? Am I doing a good job of that? Okay. All right, because day 3 is when God says the water needs to go in one place so that the dry ground can appear. And so it's like we're replaying Genesis 1. The tops of the mountains were seen. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and he sent forth a raven, and it went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set her foot. And she returned to him in the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days and again sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. And what else? If there's an olive leaf in her mouth, what does that mean? It's also growing.
Vegetation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then he waited another 7 days and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him anymore. Okay, so when this dove goes out for the final time, it's kind of like this sort of thing has happened. On Mount Kars. The dove goes out, finds dry ground and vegetation, which is the exact thing that day 3 describes. The waters subside, the dry ground appears, and then God says, let vegetation spring forth. And so now we're up to day 3. And then are you guys following?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. This is all in my head, but I just want to make sure I'm, okay.
You're doing great.
All right, so in the 601st year, remember, this flood started when Noah was how old? Okay, 600. So Noah, it starts when he's 600. And then it says in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. In the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. Then God said to Noah, go out from the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth went out by families from the ark. Okay, so we have dry land, we have vegetation, and now we have a humanity that's with the animals going out and being on the land. And so it's like God decreated, he put creation back into the pre-creation state, the chaotic state, and now systematically, and even in the same order, we see God now reestablishing order upon the land. And so now it's like we were here, we were at chaos, now we're back to order. And so we're replaying. So if we're tracking, what should be the next thing that we should expect in the story beat? Garden. Okay, garden. So let's keep that in mind. Garden, but also what comes with the garden? Failure. Yeah. Okay, so we should be thinking garden, but we should also be thinking failure. So let's see if we get there. Oh, we do. But first, there's something awesome that happens. So they get off the boat, and then it said Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Who was the last person that offered like an animal offering? Abel. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, you know what? I will never again curse the ground because of man. For the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Okay, before we go to the next verse, let's look at the sacrifice thing. Okay, so Noah gets off the boat. I'm going to draw this a little bit bigger.
You're an excellent artist.
Thanks. I'm clearly planning ahead for all of my drawings. All right, so we have this sort of situation here, this boat of cosmic significance with a door, 3 levels, Okay, so Noah and his sons, they get off the boat. Plus 6 people. All right, and all the animals, they get off. Yeah, sure. All right, okay, so all the animals and the humans get off the boat, but then Noah does something that's unprecedented, something that God never even asked for. He builds an altar, and he offers this giant surrender sacrifice. A burnt offering is a symbol of total surrender, because you don't keep any of the meat. You burn the entire thing. God gets it all. And so it's this righteous and blameless guy who, as we're going to see, also is not awesome. But God is determined to just, he's so willing to just work with people where they are, that this dude, flaws and all, is willing to make a sacrifice of total and complete surrender. And God says that, I'll work with that. I'll work with that guy. And you know what? If that's true, if I'm determined to work with that kind of person, I'm never going to do this thing ever again. I can't flood the world with water again. Because if I have to do this every time this happens, this is going to get nowhere. And so God almost accommodates to where humanity is, and he says, I'm going to work with you still. Noah, you are setting a precedent. You are a righteous and blameless guy. You're going to screw up. We're going to see him screw up. But God is determined to work with someone who is willing to surrender everything to him. And as he says, he's going to make a covenant with him. He says, I'm never going to do this ever again. I'm never going to flood the earth, the land with water again. And from now until eternity or whatever, from now until new creation, this thing is going to run just as it's meant to. Day and night's not going to cease. Seed time and harvest is not going to cease. Summer and winter. God is establishing cosmic permanence. Cosmic stability. That's probably better. Okay. All right. But then there's so chapter 9 opens up this way. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Now, if this were Genesis 1, God's intention for humanity is for them to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, to rule the earth and to subdue it, and to also rule over the animals. But remember, we talked about ruling over animals is not in the sense of like making them do your bidding. It's the sense of protection, of cultivation, of making sure they have what they need, because you're not eating their food. Remember, the whole point is that humans get everything with fruit in it. Animals get every other green plant. But then at Genesis 3, we see humans are now allowed to eat the green plants, and so they're encroaching on the animals' food. And then now we see, unfortunately, it's not that there's going to be this give and take, this good relationship good relationship between humans and animals anymore, because God says this: the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. As I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. But you shall not eat flesh with its life in it, that is, its blood. And for your lifeblood, I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require from it, and from man. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning for the life of a man. Whoever sheds the blood of a human, by human shall his blood be shed. For God made humanity in his own image. Okay, so this wonderful relationship that humans were supposed to have with the animals has now been completely corrupted. And so now animals and humans aren't going to live in harmony anymore. And now humans are actually allowed to eat animals. And it's weird that this is here, but I think it's meant to act as almost like another sort of accommodation. It's like, you guys are so prone to violence. Please, if you're going to kill something, kill an animal and eat it. Like, don't kill each other. Right. So it's kind of this like, it's the non-ideal situation that God is trying to just meet people where they are, to just try to put a stamp, like to try to stem something. Because it's like all this destructive, horrible violence, this is what this all resulted in. So please, for goodness sake, don't do that again. But this is not, it's also not good. It's not God's ideal. It's not God's ideal that humans will eat the flesh of an animal to live. God's ideal is that nothing lives at the expense of another living thing. It's all a plant diet. But after the flood, we see that God accommodates to this tendency. But importantly, he says, do not eat its life, that is its blood. And this is going to be an important image as we go into Leviticus. That blood is this like liquid representation of the life of something. And as we saw earlier in the story of Cain and Abel, that when Cain struck down his brother, God said, Cain, your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground. And so God always hears the cry of blood that's not, it's like unjustly spilt. That's a scream, a cry in God's ears, and he always hears it. And so he says, do not eat anything with its blood in it. And as we see in Leviticus, God has a different intention for blood, which is cool, but we'll get there. And then he says to Noah and his sons, he says, be fruitful and multiply, increase on the earth and multiply in it. And he says, I'm going to establish my covenant with you and with your offspring. I'm never going to do this again. And the sign of this is a very accurate representation of what a rainbow is a rainbow. And so every time that God sees this and every time that we see it, we need to remember God's covenant that he has hung up his bow of war, and he's not going to strike the land with water anymore. And so it's a reminder to us that this is going to remain, cosmic stability. God made a promise, and what's cool is this promise has no other stipulation. It's not like, hey, Noah, if you do this, I'm going to not destroy the earth. It's just a straight up, I'm not going to do this again with water. There's no covenant partner. It's just, I'm promising you this is not going to happen again. Okay. We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. All right. So we are still at the chaos to order state. So now we're going to kind of pick up the narrative. We have this sacrifice that's happened. God's looking upon it with joy. He's like, yes, this is the kind of guy I can work with, regardless of the fact that every thought, it's this pervasive depravity. It's like somewhere down the line, something's going to go wrong. So we're back up there. All right, so the sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So it's kind of like we're back. Remember before the flood story, we had that same line. And so now it's like, okay, we're back at that point. We explained what happened to Shem, Ham, and Japheth and to Noah. And so now we're going to kind of continue on this stereotypical sort of genealogical thing. So there's this weird little narrative detail that's added in verse 18. It says, the sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And you know what? Ham, he was the father of Canaan. Okay? These three were the sons of Noah, and from these people of the whole earth were dispersed. Okay, great. Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. Yes, sweet. Okay, we've had chaos, we've had order, and now we're back to the garden. We have this little vineyard that Noah has planted. I think that's how great plants look.
That's good.
Okay, that's a vineyard.
Yeah.
Cool.
Beautiful vineyard.
So it's great. We have a vineyard. We have a garden. It's like, yes, hooray. But then he says he drank of the wine and became drunk and ended up naked. What does that sound like? Eating the fruit, ending up naked. Failure, specifically patterned off of what, though? Who were the last people to eat fruit and realize they were naked? Yeah. Exactly. So we have the new Adam. Remember, the new Adam who is in the new garden. It's like a cosmic restart. It's a great setup. And so he plants a garden. It's like, yes, hooray, woohoo, this is the dude. Because there's nothing wrong with planting a garden. That's like wonderful. But then instead of taking the fruit and eating it, he drinks it and he becomes drunk and he lays uncovered in his tent. And so we have this dude who we were like, yes, this guy, he's the snake crusher. He's making a sacrifice to Yahweh. He can surrender. It's like, yes. And it's like, oh, crap. Yep. Dang it. Makes the same exact mistake. He drank of the wine and became drunk and ended up naked in his tent. Okay, so we're now here. So failure happened. And so next we should expect the second generation to do something. And Ham, remember, Ham is the father of Canaan. He saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had did to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan." What? Why would he curse his grandson? That's a little odd. "A servant of servants shall he be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japhet, and let him dwell in the house of the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." And now after the flood, Noah lived 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950, and he died. Okay, so to round out this crazy story, let's have an even crazier story. So we have Noah gets off the boat, he plants a garden, it's awesome, but then he has his failure. And so we're set up to expect this second generation that sort of results in a splitting of the brothers. And so the second generation fails. In the first beat of the Eden story, it was Cain and Abel. Cain made the same decision that his parents made, killed his brother, and then that resulted in a splitting of Shem's line and Cain's line. And so now we have this second gen. We have Ham, who, remember, is the father of Canaan. Okay, he saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. And then it says that Noah realized what Ham had done to him, and then he curses Ham's son. So it's like, what on earth is going on? Let's turn to Leviticus 18, shall we? Everybody's favorite book of the Bible, right? Leviticus 18, verses 7 and 8. You guys don't have that bookmarked? It's not like your favorite verse to read in the morning? All right, so Leviticus 18, Leviticus chapter 18, verse 7. "You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, which is the nakedness of your mother. She is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife. It is your father's nakedness." So, back in our story, when Ham is seeing the nakedness of his father, who is he actually seeing the nakedness of? Exactly. I'll tell you guys, this is weird. The Bible's weird. But the Bible's not condoning this action, it's just expressing this action. And so we have naked Noah. Oh my gosh, what the heck is that? That's a tent. We have naked Noah. That's the flaps of the tent.
Nice.
Thank you.
Oh,
All right, so we have naked Noah and Noah's wife. All right. This is not the most positive end to this class. I apologize, but this is it is what it is. Okay, I'm not going to hide you guys from what the Bible says. Okay, so Ham enters into the tent. He sees his naked parents there, and then he decides to try to basically usurp the role of his father by having sex with his mom. And then what the result of that is his son Canaan. Okay? Which is why Noah, when he realizes that that's the case, he curses Canaan. And so Canaan, remember, are the Canaanites going to be very positive figures later on in the Bible? No. So what this is saying is that the Canaanites, who think that they're all big and bad, are actually the product of an incestuous relationship between Noah's son and his mother. Okay?
That's not cool.
That's not cool. That's not cool. And so we have Ham, and we have Noah's wife. And we have Canaan. All right. So when Noah finds this out, he's ticked. And that's why the narrator says that Ham was the father of Canaan 3 times. Or twice, sorry. Twice, and then cursed be Canaan. The third time is implied. So this decision to usurp his father, or to try to like dominate, to sort of, it's like he saw his mother and he took her for himself. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. He's just doing the exact same thing that all of the humans up to this story have done. It's coming in many different manifestations, and that's the point. It's this tree, this at the tree moment of seeing what's good in your own eyes and taking it. It's not just always, oh, that's a tree that I'm going to take from. Sometimes it's a person. Sometimes it's a tree. Sometimes it's a person. Sometimes it's a Babylonian cloak. It's all of these things. It's just when you decide, or when we decide what's good in our own eyes and take what we think is good, we're right back at the tree, and we're just replaying the exact same thing that the humans in the garden replayed. And so Ham is doing the same thing. He's taking his mother for himself, and this offspring, this Canaan, again, which is not a proper fusion.
No, not at all.
It's an improper fusion. And so the Canaanites, later on in the story, are going to sort of take up the narrative role of these Nephilim giants.
Oh, okay.
And so just like God sent the flood to sort of remove these Nephilim from the face of the earth, he's going to send Israel into Canaan to purge it of all these little snaky bits. And so Israel's armies and Joshua, remember God said, I'm not going to flood the land with water again, but the armies of Israel are like the flood to sort of purge the land again, because this is kind of where it all starts. And then later on in Genesis 19, we see the same weird story happen again, but it's Lot and his daughters. And it results in the Moabites and the Ammonites.
Yeah.
And so the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Canaanites, the Bible is saying, you guys think you're all big and bad, but you're all the product of incest. Okay? That's gross. And Leviticus 18, again, at the end, verse 24, it says, do not make yourselves unclean by any of these things. This is all like sexual relations. For by all these, the nations I am driving out before you have become unclean. And the land became unclean, so that I punish its iniquity. And the land vomited out its inhabitants. And so they're going into Canaan, and this sort of sets the role, or sets the pattern of how the Canaanites act. They're incestuous, just like their ancestor. They have unlawful sexual relations, just like their ancestor. And God can't let that abide. Like he can't abide that. He can't let it stand. And so he allows Israel to sort of go in and sort of act as a narrative flood. Now, obviously, when we get to Joshua, it's difficult language to hear. Like, hey guys, go in there and kill everyone. Like, that's really difficult to hear. And it should bother us because it's bothersome. But when we get there, we'll talk about it a little more, and we'll kind of go back and talk about this story too in the flood when we get there, because those two stories are actually really intrinsically linked. But as we leave, we have sort of played through all of these, save the last one, because that's what Genesis 11 is about. And so we have chaos to order, which was the garden. It was the boat, all of this stuff. We have the garden that God plants versus the garden that Noah plants. It's great, it's cool, but then we have the failure, which in the original garden's case was the humans taking of the fruit of themselves. In Noah's case, it was drinking, becoming drunk, and laying naked in his tent. And then we have the second generation replaying the sins of their forefathers and then resulting in this split. And so we have these three brothers who are then going to split off, and they become sort of the like patriarchs or the progenitors of all these different nations. And then when we see these different nations in conflict with each other throughout the biblical story, we have to remember, okay, who are these brothers again? Is it Ham fighting Japhet? Is it Japhet fighting Shem? Like, what's going on? And so that's the point of the genealogy that we're going to read next. Not next. That would be awful. Enough is enough. Next week we're gonna see kind of how that all plays out. Importantly, though, there's hope. There's always hope. And so the hope in Genesis 3 was for this snake crusher, and then the hope in this failure narrative is that blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Okay, that's kind of like that's what happens. And then may God enlarge Japhet and let him dwell in the house of Shem. And so it's this weird mixture of like a curse on Canaan, but also this blessing on his two brothers, and ultimately this blessing to God. Blessed be Yahweh, the God of Shem. And so as we leave Genesis 9, we kind of feel a little icky. We're like, this is a really weird situation. It's really awful. And remember, guys, we're like rapidly going through these beats, which means as soon as we finish at the city, what should we expect?
Chaos again.
Exactly, to start all back over.
Right.
And so we're like racing through. In the first beat, it was like 6 whole chapters. This is like 2 verses in this thing. And so we're like rapidly racing to get to that point. And so when we get to the city, we're going to see how the Tower of Babel is this. It's again, what God does is he decreates it, but also uses this broken situation to recreate something. And then we get the story of Abraham. And then Abraham himself is going to walk through this like 4 times. He's going to walk through the 1 through 11 beat 2 times. And so when we go into Abraham's life, that's why I wanted to take such a long time to go through chapters 1 through 11, because when we get to Abraham, we're going to see Abraham's story is patterned off of the same things. And we're going to be able to anticipate what's going to happen next when we see what Abraham has already gone through. But that is enough for tonight.
That's awesome.
That's enough for tonight. So when we come back next week, or next time, we're going to go into chapters.
Is it next week?
Should be next week.
Yeah, good.
Chapters 10 and 11. And then that's going to kind of round off 1 through 11. And then we're going to be ready to rock and roll through the rest of the biblical story. But thank you guys. Appreciate it. All right, guys, that's it for this week. I just want to thank you for listening in, and I just want to say a blessing over you. So may God bless you as you go to wherever you're going next, home, to work, whatever. I just pray that you would feel and experience God's presence. All right, thank you guys so much.